So today we're doing the pumpkin roll, and I'm gonna start out by putting parchment on my jelly roll pan. Now, a jelly roll pan is slightly smaller than a cookie sheet, so you do have to get this special size or your roll is gonna be a little too thin if you use a cookie sheet. So it's worth the investment to get a parchment, a jelly roll pan. So when you're measuring out your parchment, go a little bit wider than your pan because you're gonna wanna be able to grab it. So I leave it about an inch either side, and you can trim it if you've got a little too much. Now, if you see, my edges aren't staying down, and I want my jelly roll to be perfectly square. So I'm gonna just sprinkle a little water, just a little, onto my pan to make it stick. And you'll see it'll stay a lot better once you put your dough on there. So I'll leave that and go make my jelly roll. Now I'm gonna put all my dry ingredients into a medium-sized bowl. So I have 3/4 of a cup of flour. I'm gonna add that in. And I have a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. One thing I didn't mention before I started, have everything measured out and ready to go ahead so that you know you have enough ingredients of each one. This is 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 2 teaspoons of pumpkin spice. Also on the recipe, you'll see if you don't have pumpkin spice, I have a recipe to make pumpkin spice with a selection of spices. And this is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I always use sea salt in all my baking. And this is just gonna get whisked around to blend your spices all in there with your flour nice and evenly so you get a consistent taste in your roll. And now I'm gonna put together my wet ingredients, and that I'm gonna do in the stand mixer. So I'm gonna do 3 eggs, and I always like to scrape down the bowl to get all the ingredients because baking is a science, and the closer you get to the exact recipe, the better your outcome is. And so eggs and sugar, and we're gonna mix that for 1 minute. And I put it on about medium. Mix this for 1 minute with the sugar and egg, and now I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla and 2/3 of a cup of pumpkin, and I'm gonna mix those in on medium. I'm gonna stop my mixer and put it in good. Get every bit of my pumpkin. So the pumpkin was homegrown in Jane's garden. Some nice little sugar pumpkins made with love by Jane and Ashley and Nathan. So it's gonna taste extra good. And I'm gonna get that mixing until it's well blended. So I let that mix. Didn't take long, maybe 30 seconds. And now I'm going to fold in my dry ingredients. So just slowly add and fold it. It's a pretty thin consistency when you first start, but it'll thicken up. I'm just gonna keep folding it for the rest of it. Can you see that? So you don't want to beat it up, just gently keep folding it until it mixes together. We're just about there. You just want to be sure there's no lumps in it. And that's pretty good. And then any lumps I see, I just kind of press. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're ready to add it into our pan. So, this is probably the trickier part. Just pour it down the middle, and then we'll guide it a bit once we've got it all in there. You want it very even so that your roll is consistent thickness all the way along. So I'm just gonna grab a spatula and push it to my edges. And I want it to be perfectly square. Just and if you see it's thicker in areas, just move it along gently to get it pretty consistent. This is why you want your it's a little bit putsy, but take the time to do this step right because it makes it a lot easier when you go to roll. And it just tastes better if it's all even. So that's looking pretty good, pretty even everywhere. Except for this corner, so I'm gonna play with it a bit. There. See if you just hold your paper down a bit and get the weight in there, it usually stays pretty good. Okay, I think I'm pretty, but I'm not happy yet. Okay, I think that's pretty good now. Okay, I think we're ready. So 375 is the temperature of our oven. So this is going into the 375 degree oven for 13 to 15 minutes. And my rack is just a little higher than half. So our pumpkin roll's coming on 13 minutes, so we're gonna check it at the shorter end of the scale. Every oven's different, so be sure you start at 13 minutes and then work your way up to 15 if you need it. This is looking pretty good to me. You see all the little air bubbles, and when I press it, it's not quite bouncing back. What do you think, Jane?
I put it in for a minute.
Yeah, so let's put it back in for 1 minute. Another minute, and we'll check it again. So that seems like it's bouncing back now. Yep. Can you see it bouncing back? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that looks good. So we're going to right away take it off out of the pan. So I just put it right on my, I know some people say you shouldn't do that on your granite countertop, but I can get my trusty silicone. Has many uses. It's great for also rolling out dough. So I'll put that on there. So we've put it on our silicone, and now we're gonna roll it while it's hot. So I just kind of use the edges of the paper to help me roll it fairly tight, but not crazy. And now I'm just gonna leave it to cool. And I like to put it on a rack because see how it keeps wanting to unroll a bit? So I'm gonna put it on a rack. And I'll just let it cool on my rack. So now for the filling of the pumpkin roll, there's a couple of ingredients that we need. The butter. So I like to weigh my butter. So it's asking for 6 tablespoons, and I take it right from the fridge. So that's why I want to weigh it. It'd take me forever to try and measure out 6 tablespoons. So the equivalent of that is about 88, 89 grams. So I've measured that out. So basically, Jane, in cups, it would be 1/4 and 1/8 of a cup.
Yeah.
1/4 and 1/8. So, and I'm just gonna do these ingredients just cold right out of the fridge. So I'm gonna microwave that for about 20 seconds, the butter. And for the cream cheese, I've taken 1 brick right out of the fridge, and I've just chopped it into these kind of bite-sized squares. So I've just kind of gone and diced it up. And I have my vanilla ready to go. And I'm gonna take my 1 cup, I've already done a 1/2 cup, so another 1/2 cup of icing sugar, and I'm gonna sift it into a bigger bowl, just because it makes a bit of a mess when you try to sift it. So I will do this, and then just basically mix it in my stand mixer until it's nice and creamy with no lumps. Okay, so I'm gonna throw my cream cheese in there. And then you see my butter, it's mostly melted, but softened for sure. So I'm gonna dump that in. And again, I like to scrape my bowl to get the entire measure. And then we have vanilla. And our powdered sugar. All right, and we're gonna mix that up. Slow at first to get it combined a bit. And then I put it up to medium until it's nice. nice and creamy. let it go for about a minute, just over a minute, and I'm just gonna scrape it down and continue. There's still a few lumps, so I'm gonna continue probably about another minute at medium. So that was one more minute, and that looks pretty good to me. So I'm just gonna get the batter off. Ready to roll. Okay, now for the tricky part. I wanted Jane to do it, but she wouldn't, so I'm gonna attempt this. It's a little bit. So it's been about an hour and it's still
A bit warm.
oh, just a touch. Oops, split it. Dang. So the idea is not to split it. So
I actually
start
don't.
from this.
I actually don't mind the splits. A little cream cheese kind of sifts through it. It just looks like a little tiger stripe.
That's right. Doesn't have to be perfect to be yummy. So I'm just gonna put this down the middle. See how nice and creamy our filling is. No lumps.
Yours is probably creamier than mine goes.
It's just the beauty of the stand mixer, you know. You don't have to sit there and kill yourself. So I'm just gonna spread this out about, I don't know, half an inch from the, now on the edge that you're gonna start rolling, you can go right close, but where you're gonna end, you need some space for it to ooze out.
Are you gonna end there? On this end?
I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna end here. So, and again, try to get it as even as possible. I know it says not to go to the edges, but on the sides I kind of do, because
I do too.
why cut it off? That's all delicious. Yeah, my technique's not so good, but
I need one of those knives you got there.
you don't have one of these?
No.
Listen, a baker's only as good as their tools.
Better get one.
Yep. Okay, so that looks pretty even. Then you have to say a prayer and hope you don't split it again. So we're gonna remove the wrap as we go and roll it as tightly as you can. Oh, this is going pretty good. I've got no breaks. Oh my God, I'm a superstar. So that is pretty near perfection. See if you see the sides. You got your filling right to the edge, so even the very ends, a lot of times you just cut off the first little bit to make it perfect, but we're not so caught up in perfect around here. We just like it to taste good, so no sense cutting off and throwing that out. Just pop it in your mouth. And that's the end of our roll. So what we're gonna do now is wrap it real tight in saran wrap or plastic wrap or Glad wrap. And then if you want, this can go in the freezer. I think it says right in the recipe how long, so you can refrigerate it up to 5 days, or you can put it in the freezer for 3 months. If I'm gonna put it in the freezer, what I like to do is do the saran wrap, and if you haven't discovered this stuff yet, Glad Press and Seal, this is the bomb. It sticks to anything and it sticks to itself. So I like to wrap it again over top, either in aluminum foil or this Press and Seal. Okay, so to wrap this bad boy, I just took a good sheet of saran wrap, and I'm gonna put it this way, and I'm gonna wrap it twice. So I'm gonna roll it and keep it tight, because you don't want your roll unrolling. And then I'm gonna do one more real good size sheet to go end to end. So I'm gonna go end to end. And wrap it just like a present. And then I'm gonna freeze this one. So I'm gonna take my magic press and seal. And like I said, if you've never used this, this is the best. It will stick to your plastic. It'll stick to glass, Corningware, anything, or like I said, just to itself. So, and there you have it. I was a little bit skimpy with it. I'll just take one more piece right here. And I have my perfect roll ready for the freezer. And last but not least, to serve this, you're gonna unwrap it all, and you're just gonna slice it into about 3/4 of an inch slices all the way down. And if you want, before you slice it, you can dust a little powdered sugar over top, but it's certainly not necessary. It's delicious just the way it is. But if you want to get a little fancy and pretty, go ahead and sprinkle some sugar and then slice it.